Left off Wednesday night, we'd like just one little bit, finish it up with John chapter 10. So look at the end of it. We looked at this one slide here where Jesus says, I and my Father are one, and read this statement from Madam Clark, where he says, I, the Father, and that's, if you look at the background of the word there, the emphasis on that, I, the Father, the creator of all things, the judges of all men, the Father of spirits of one flesh, one in nature, one in attributes of the Godhead, one in all operations of attributes. And he adds on there, so it is evident the Jews understood him. And that's kind of where we stop right there. So the point is, why is it evident in the last part of John chapter 10 that the Jews understood what he was saying about his oneness with the Father? Why? Because what they want to do to him? They're going to stone him for blasphemy. Okay, so they totally understood his implication by what he was saying there. So he asked him, well, why are you stoning me? For what? And then look at verses 37 and 38. 37, if I do not do the works of my Father, if I don't do the miracles that I've been doing and the things the Father would have me do, if I don't do the works, what? You're not going to believe me, right? Then verse 38, if I do the miracles, then you still won't believe me. So if I do the works, if I do the miracles, if I don't do them, excuse me first, if I don't do them, you're not going to believe who I am, right? Because if I just say I'm who I am without any proof of it by the signs I'm doing, you're not going to believe who I am. But if I do the miracles, if I do the works, the signs that the Father gave me, what? You still don't believe me, okay? So that's the predicament he puts to them, that you're not going to believe me no matter what I do, because you've got it made up in your heart that you're not going to believe me. Speaking to the Jewish leaders there. So he told them, believe my works, because such can only come from deity. So that's kind of the end of it there. They try to stone him, and he moves through out of their region before. The works the Father does to me confirms who I am. So now we'll go back over to Luke chapter 10. That one little short piece there that I want to be sure we got in. Because he's, with all the signs he's trying to do, they still won't buy who he is, either way. So, Luke chapter 10. We've got really three little stories in here that look at the sending out of the 70, and then the good Samaritan, and then Mary and Martha a little bit at the end about that. So we'll start through that this morning. So we're making a big shift here. We've been in John, and if you remember the timeline we've kind of looked at over in John, we started out there after John chapter 6 with the feeding of 5,000. There was a 6-month gap then kind of before John chapter 7. It's the fall of the year, and the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Booths going on. And then we wound up the last thing in John. I showed you a picture of the snow on the ground. It's now wintertime, and the Feast of Dedication, which comes the Hanukkah time thing. So we've kind of gone that 3 months into that of the last 6 months of the life of Christ. We've kind of gone in John 3 of those 6 months. Well, now we're going to back up some. So we kind of got things going on in Luke now that may have been paralleled time frame wise with the things that went on in John there. So a little background from where we are. We got quite a bit of time to spend in Luke, catching up some stories here. Philip Owens had this little blip in a book of his I've got. All these events that are going on now in Luke, we don't know where they all occurred. More than likely, a lot of them are in Judea, although some may be in Perea across the Jordan, and some back up in Galilee. Because there's 4 different references here on the screen when he makes reference to going to Jerusalem or being near Jerusalem. So he's making trips to Jerusalem. Let's go up to Jerusalem. A trip to Jerusalem. We're going up to Jerusalem. So there's times he's going there. So he's going to Jerusalem from somewhere. Probably Galilee, maybe going through Perea across the Jordan as he comes up that way. So exactly where, we don't know. They occur, a lot of them, but travel between the areas there. Time frame, again, we've talked about these two feasts, the October feast and the December feast. So back now in Luke, we're back to this last 6 months, but more than likely we're back in the first half of that last 6 months time frame here. Let's look at Luke. We're not picking it up where we left off in John. In other words, it's the wintertime and going forward. Kind of backing up time frame wise here. So we start off in Luke chapter 10 with Jesus sending out the 70 to preach. Or if you've got a different translation, you may say he sent out 72 to preach. The discussion about the 70 versus 72 generally comes, we sent them out 2 by 2. So in transcribing that, somewhere along the way, did the 2 by 2 get turned into 72? We sent them out in pairs. 70 is the number that shows up a couple of the times. If you go back to the Old Testament, when Moses needed help, and they appointed 70 elders to help judge and take care of the tribes. 70 was a number from there. The Sanhedrin and the Jewish High Court made up of 70 members. So that's a common number from that standpoint with that there. But he does send them out in pairs, and he sends them out in pairs to places where he is about to go, where they're like forerunners go out, introduce the word that's coming, and I'm coming behind you to preach myself and that. So he sends them out where he's about to go again. The where is unknown exactly, whether it's southern Galilee, whether it's across to Perea, Transjordan. A lot of the commentators will put him going across the Jordan, send him to Perea, over the area on the east side of the Jordan. This is a key point, I think, from the sending them out 2 by 2. Remember the 12 when he sent them out on limited commission? Went out 2 by 2. Okay, and this passage from Ecclesiastes kind of bears on that. Seems like 2 are better than 1. Have a good reward for their labor. If one falls, the other will pick him up or lift him up. So beware of those who are by themselves and fall, because there's no one to pick him up then. So the reason for sending out 2 by 2, there you got someone to work with you with that. He tells them that the harvest is plentiful. Same similar thing he told the 12 when he sent them out. Harvest is bountiful, plentiful, but there's no laborers. As he said, there's no laborers. So then he gives them this little spiel about what they're going into. It could be dangerous. I'm sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. And so it's very similar. I'm going to actually use the list from Matthew 10 when he sent the 12 out on the screen in a minute. It's not the exact same thing that's in Luke 10, but if you look down, look at some of the similarities there. So it says these are some of the places he's going to send them out to. This is the countryside around there. So this is the list from Matthew 10. And if you look at the list in Luke 10 here, it's very, very, very similar to what he told them was going to happen to them. Not exact, but there. Be like sheep in the midst of wolves, brought before governors and councils. I don't think that was mentioned here. Cause brother to be against brother and father against child. Hated by all men, persecuted, killed the body but not the soul. And all this is being done with your Father's knowledge, which God knows what's going on. God's going to be with you there and take care of you. So these are some of the dangers he mentioned back to the 12 when he sent them out. And he gives a similar type thing, not an exact list, here with his 70. It's not going to be pleasant. It's going to be tough. I'll send you out there. And this is the harvest with very few laborers out there. So he tells them, you got a bountiful harvest. You got few laborers. Pray. Pray that the Lord of harvest will send forth reapers. So pray that God will provide the laborers out there. Then he tells them, when you go on your trip, very similar to what he told the 12, when you go, don't take your purse, don't take money, don't take extra change of clothes, don't take provisions you're going to need on the trip. Don't take those things, because the laborers, whether it's hire, and these things be provided for you when you go. So just don't take anything extra with you there. Eat what's set before you. Basically, it says go into a house, and if you find peace in that house, if they welcome you in, then you go in and you stay there as long as you're welcome, and you're preaching, and you eat what's set before you. You take the hospitality they give you, and you preach the kingdom of heaven's at hand. That's the message. The kingdom of heaven is near you. I think that's the way it's phrased here in this one. The kingdom of heaven is near you. So these are the ones that will accept them and bring them into the house and feed them and care for them. The kingdom of heaven is near you. But then what about those who won't bring you in with peaceful things? Those who reject you. What's the message you're going to give them? The kingdom of heaven is near you. You're going to preach the same message both places. It's just a matter of them. Do they accept the message and welcome you in and want to hear more about it? Or do you preach it and they don't want to hear it, and therefore you do what? You shake the dust off your feet and you leave them and go home. So there are other places to go preach to. He says if they do that, if that's their choice, they pronounce judgment on themselves. You preach the same message both times. You preach the kingdom of heaven is near. But they'll make the choice. So it's not unlike today. The message preached to us, we make the choice. But it does say, again, we've talked about this, and when I say we've talked about things, if some of you kind of stare me in the face like, we haven't really talked about that. Well, it's last quarter we talked about it. So some of you here know what I'm talking about. Others may not, because it's just one long, continuous thing here. So I forget who came in and out when. So, but we talked about this more tolerable judgment type thing that was coming up. He'd be more tolerable in Sodom in that day than it will for you. And then pronounces woes on a couple of cities in Galilee, Chorazin and Bethsaida. I got just some shots. So this is Sodom here. This is the ruins of Chorazin, some more there. Bethsaida up in the northeastern part of the Sea of Galilee there. And Capernaum. What about Capernaum? What had he been doing in Capernaum? Where did Jesus make his home when he left Nazareth? They wanted to kill him there. It's Capernaum. Don't you think a lot of good works have been done, a lot of healing going on in Capernaum? Yeah, we read a lot about it. But said Capernaum, he didn't react like he should have. If the signs done in you, Capernaum, had been done by these other people, they'd have believed. But you didn't. So then we get this verse in verse 16 that we've used before. We're talking about this red letter edition thing I mentioned 3 or 4 classes back or something. Luke 10, verse 16, he says, he who hears you hears me. He who rejects you rejects me and him who sent me. Okay? So he who hears you hears me. 3 years ago, I guess, when I did this class, Steve had just preached a lesson on Sunday evening about red letter editions of the Bible and what's Jesus' words and what's not Jesus' words, and do the words that are not Jesus' words in red letters count as much as the ones who they don't. So I kind of graded out this time because we don't have that current lesson here. But their message would not be recorded in the scripture. The 70 wouldn't if it were recorded as red letters. Why? That's not Jesus physically speaking it. What would Jesus say in verse 16? He who hears you hears me. You're delivering my message. If they reject you, they're rejecting me and my Father. That's the point of that thing. And Paul persecuted the church. In fact, Steve mentioned on his radio program this morning. Paul persecuted Christians. He persecuted the church. When Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus, what did Jesus say to him? Why are you persecuting me? Okay? So, persecuting Christians, persecuting the church was in essence persecuting Christ. Okay? See the parallel between that and hearing Christ and hearing those who are out delivering Christ's message. Okay? If you're out delivering Christ's message, as they were here, then you're hearing Christ, his message. with that. So that's kind of the parallel there. All right, there's a break. I mean, it goes from this verse to this verse, and in between there, they've gone out, done their thing, and come back. I mean, there's no recording of what they did there, except when they come back and tell about it. So they come back, and they're very, very excited about what's happened to them. And Jesus said, yes, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Now, I'm going to have this long pause while some of y'all tell me what that means. Anybody? Speak up. Satan fell from heaven like lightning. I don't really know, but I'll give you my opinion, okay? What did they come back excited about? What were they able to do in Jesus' name? Cast out demons, right? I saw some of you mouthing that. I mean, saying it out loud or not. They were able to cast out demons. And I think that's what this ties back to. Because demons were, and when Jesus was accused of casting out demons by the prince of demons, by Beelzebub, and house divided against itself can't stand, and things like that. We'll get that again. Come up again in the next lesson. We had it back before Matthew, before we get it Luke. Next time with the one after one. It's coming up in the future lesson here. So I think here they're casting out demons, which is casting out Satan's influence over these people that they're tormenting. And Jesus saw that. And that's what he said, I see Satan falling from heaven like lightning. You had the power over Satan to put him down, the conquest there. Talk to Steve about this just 1 minute. He goes along the same line, what I've been just said there. I think Steve said it was his dad. Don't quote me on this. I think Steve said his dad, along with a lot of people he knew, looked at it as when actually the people text Satan fell from heaven when he was in heaven as an angel and sinned and was cast out of heaven. That's what this was referring to there. No, Steve didn't think so, but mentioned that there are people who look at it that way. But whatever it is, Jesus said that's beside the point. Don't rejoice in that. Don't rejoice in the fact that the demons are subject to you. You cast out demons in my name. Rather rejoice in what? That your name is written in heaven. That your names are written in heaven. Okay. And then, let's see if I had a note on that. No, I guess I do. Then Jesus makes a very short, very simple prayer. He prays to the Father, thanking him that the word has not been hidden from these unlearned people, from the everyday people that they can go out and preach to, they will see it. He knows it's hidden. You got to understand what hidden means here. Hidden from these hard-hearted Jewish leaders that don't hear it, right? But the everyday people, the one that would be common, unlearned, uneducated type people, those are the ones who can hear and understand and accept what he's teaching. And he stops and gives thanks to God that he's not hidden this from these people who really want, and that's the key to it, want to understand what he's teaching. All right, that's kind of what I've got on the 70 thoughts. Something I missed on that part. Somebody wants to bring out or talk about.
I normally just think of the 12 apostles being close to Jesus, but he had at least 70 people who knew enough about what he was teaching that he felt confident enough to send them out.
Yes, that's right. And one person I was reading from even refers and reference and wonder if these 70 might be part of this same 120 that's with them after the resurrection. I don't really know that. It was just a thought he brought out. If they were so close to Jesus now and knew his teaching, knew him that well, were they still with him after the resurrection? And part of that 120. No way I know that thing was made up. But yes, there are those other than the 12 who were very close, who knew what he was teaching, knew what he was about, believed in him, and he was enough confidence in them to send them out to speak for him. So, all right, we're going to turn now to what we call the Good Samaritan. Look at it for just a few minutes. This is a shot from the eastern side of the Dead Sea. So you're looking west. So put yourself on the eastern side of the Dead Sea, looking west. And what you're going to see along the very bottom edge down here is Jericho, right, almost at sea level. And then way up high, as you can see, in the very tip top of the mountains, where you can, I can't tell it where you are, but I see some big buildings up there. Give my good eye. I'm looking at it now. Not my bad eye. I couldn't see it with my bad eyes. But anyhow, this is just a shot to show the terrain there as you go up to that way up there. And I don't think I told a lot of you, Friday at the doctor's, I could read about 5 or 6 lines off his little eye chart with my bad eye, which is progress. It's the first time I've done that. So anyhow, we're making a little progress. Okay, so here's the path you would take to go up from Jericho, down here along that coastline, up to Jerusalem, way back up the top of those mountains up there. It's called the Ascent of Adumim, and it's right along the top edge of this deep gorge over here. It's called the Wadi Kilt. And so that's the rugged path. I've seen it before. But actually what I want to do now is stop this. I've got a video from Satellite Bible Atlas, and this covers this. And this is not just for the trip. Don't think about this just as the Good Samaritan trip. Think about any time they're traveling up to Jerusalem. And the number of times that they came from Galilee to go up to Jerusalem for the feast or anything like that. If they went over and came down on the eastern side or down through the Jordan River Valley, they're going to come up this path to get there. Okay? So this is lit up. It might play from here. I don't know if it will or not. I've got it on screen back here, so if it won't, see if it will. What's it? I was afraid it might do that, so I'm going to see if I can stop that. Get out of it some way, because I've got it on the other screen over here. Right here. I've already got it loaded up.
Introducing the Sea of Galilee, Hula Valley, Golan, and Mount Hermon. Commentary for Satellite Bible Atlas, Map 1.5.
All right, I like to skip
The
over.
area depicted on Map 1.5 is located in the northeast corner of Israel.
That's the wrong one.
Let's note
I
the
didn't get
different
there.
regions appearing on Map 1.5. First is Upper Galilee, a rugged.
Sorry about that. I actually came in and loaded it all up ahead of time, so I have it ready to go. In fact, I loaded it about a week ago. So
In this video, we examine the road from Jericho to Jerusalem.
We're about to start the hike from Jericho to Jerusalem.
Can't win for losing. Can't win for losing. Shift function F5. It's a good video. It really is if I ever get there with it. All right. Oh, let's take it a minute.
In this video,
There we
we
go.
examine the road from Jericho to Jerusalem.
We're about to start the hike from Jericho to Jerusalem.
Starting east of the Jordan River.
There we go.
That's the road from Jericho to Jerusalem on Map 1.9.
It's fuzzy to start with. It clears up in a
The
minute.
different districts of Jericho, including the residential area and municipal Jericho. Passing through municipal Jericho, the road begins climbing up the Ascent of Adumim, a ridge on the south side of the deep Wadi Kilt Canyon. Continuing through the rocky Judean wilderness, the road descends into a canyon called Nahal Og, which acts like a moat guarding Jerusalem's eastern approach. The road climbs up another ridge, then over the Mount of Olives to Jerusalem. This cross-section diagram shows the different segments
why it's so
of the
fuzzy.
route that travels from
They do clear
Jericho
up.
to Jerusalem.
I watched it before.
This is the route that Jesus took on his last journey up to Jerusalem.
This is the interesting
Note,
part
on the
here.
lower
Watch
right-hand
this.
side of the screen, Jericho sits at 800 feet or 250 meters below sea level. Jesus would have passed through the different districts of Jericho. First, the residential area, and then about 1.5 miles away was municipal Jericho, built by the Hasmoneans and Herod the Great. From municipal Jericho, the route climbs on a ridge called the Ascent of Adumim, or the Red Ascent, to a ridge crest, where Roman and Crusader period forts guarded the road. From the forts, the road descends into a canyon called Nahal Og, and then continues up toward Jerusalem on a ridge where parts of the Roman road can still be seen today. It reaches the eastern shoulder of the Mount of Olives, then climbs over the top of the mountain. Finally, the road descends down into the Kidron Valley before ascending into the city of Jerusalem. The straight line distance between Jerusalem and Jericho is 14 miles or 22 kilometers, but there is an elevation difference of 3,300 feet or 1,000 meters. We start our journey back down near Jericho's strongest freshwater spring, which is covered by the long red-roofed building. Next to the spring sit the ruins of Old Testament period Jericho, conquered by Joshua. Ruins of the conquered Canaanite city have been exposed by modern archaeological excavation. From here we continue south or west to Herodian municipal Jericho. This view from the south of the Jericho region shows the different districts of Jericho. Residential Jericho, including the main freshwater spring at the foot of the Old Testament period ruins, but also municipal Jericho, built in the decades before Jesus by the Hasmoneans and Herodians. Residential Jericho was separated from Herodian municipal Jericho by about 1.5 miles or 2 kilometers.
Key point here.
Knowing the district breakdown of ancient Jericho helps explain an apparent contradiction in the Gospels regarding the location of the healing of the blind man Bartimaeus. Matthew and Mark state that Jesus met Bartimaeus as Jesus was going out from Jericho, describing the healing from the perspective of residential Jericho. On the other hand, Luke describes the healing from the perspective of municipal Jericho, saying that Jesus was approaching Jericho. The healing would have taken place on a road between the Jericho districts. What at first glance looks like a contradiction between the Gospels is actually a careful recording of different eyewitness perspectives. After passing through Herodian municipal Jericho,
It started off fuzzy last time, and when I watched it, and it got real clear.
climbing
Oh,
the
wait,
Ascent
I'm
of
sorry.
Adumim, the ridge on the south side of One Kilt. At the beginning of the ascent, the road was guarded by Kypros, a fortress built by Herod the Great, situated on a high cone-shaped hill. Herod named the fortress in honor of his mother. Like the modern road seen here, the ancient road stayed on the ridge, avoiding the deep canyons of the Judean desert.
The road from Jericho to Jerusalem comes through the rough terrain of the Judean desert.
The Judean desert sits in the rain shadow of the hill country of Judah. Rain and vegetation disappear the further one descends east toward the Jordan Valley. The Judean desert is sparsely populated. Water, accessible only with difficulty, is from springs deep in the canyons. Mainly 3 types of peoples live here: the refugee or fugitive like David fled from Saul, or the monks who built this monastery. Secondly, policemen, soldiers guarding the roads, but mainly the semi-nomadic shepherd with flocks of sheep and goats. The Ascent of Adumim, or the Red Ascent, gets its name from the reddish color of some of the limestone along the route. Another suggestion is that the name comes from the amount of blood that has been shed on the route. We note here an example of the geographical detail and accuracy of the scriptures. The book of Joshua, chapter 15, verse 7, says that the border between the tribal allotments of Judah and Benjamin goes along the Ascent of Adumim, which is south of the valley, meaning south of the Wide Kilt. Benjamin's allotment is to the north, Judah is to the south. A little less than halfway between Jericho and Jerusalem, the Adumim ridge ends at a crest. Here, a series of ancient forts strategically guarded the road. At the Adumim ridge crest, the path of the ancient road joins the modern highway for a couple miles. The red-roofed building is a reconstructed Turkish inn, which today is a museum for Samaritan artifacts. The Good Samaritan helped the man along the Jerusalem to Jericho route. Beyond the Idumean Ridge crest, the road must descend into the Og Canyon. In the distant horizon, beyond the Og Depression, towers on the Mount of Olives are visible. Here, the modern highway starts its way up out of the Og Canyon. In addition to the steep descent and barrenness of the entire Judean desert, the depth of the Og Canyon makes direct approach to Jerusalem very difficult. The Israelite prophets of Jerusalem, like Isaiah, were familiar with this desert terrain. Winter rains cause grass and flowers, like peoples and nations, to temporarily flourish.
We're in the Judean wilderness to east of Jerusalem. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of the Lord stands forever.
Isaiah also says to prepare for the coming of the Lord, like preparing a road for a king coming through the desert. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. The modern highway continues to climb out of the Og Canyon. Vegetation and human settlement now appear. The three towers on the Mount of Olives are visible. Like all travelers from Jericho, we keep an eye on the Mount of Olives, knowing that Jerusalem is just on the other side. The Roman road did not ascend from the Og Canyon where the modern road does. Cuttings and remnants of the Roman road can be seen on this ridge. The Mount of Olives is on the horizon to the west.
We're standing on a section of the Roman road that went from Jerusalem higher up in the hills through the Judean desert to Jericho. This is the road where the Good Samaritan helped a man who had fallen among thieves.
Now we have arrived at the eastern shoulder of the Mount of Olives. Here is relatively flatter ground with human settlement, and where roads maneuver more freely. Note the modern roads that travel along the shoulder from north to south. One of the main biblical towns on the shoulder was Bahurim, whose ruins might be on this hill. Another possibility is that Bahurim was located where this modern town is, since it sits exactly where the road from Jericho reaches the shoulder. As seen on map 5.5, when David fled Jerusalem during Absalom's revolt, he came over the Mount of Olives and passed by Bahurim. At Bahurim, a Benjamite named Shimei came out and cursed David. Also, two spies that David left behind departed from Jerusalem and hid in a cistern in Bahurim before joining David further east near the Jordan River. David then forded the Jordan River and made his way into Gilead. From Bahurim, one could take the steep ascent straight over the Mount of Olives. However, a route to Jerusalem, the city of David, ascended the Mount of Olives slightly to the south. Jesus was on this route, as in his days it led to the town of Bethany, the home of Lazarus. Bethany and another town, Bethphage, sit on the southeastern slope of the Mount of Olives. Marked on map 9.8 are a couple of occasions when Jesus traveled on the Jericho to Jerusalem route. Following an episode at Hanukkah in Jerusalem, Jesus spent time in the district of Perea.
So we just talked about this morning.
After hearing about the sickness of Lazarus, he stayed 2 days longer and then climbed the Jericho to Jerusalem road to Bethany, where he raised Lazarus from the dead.
Which is our next chapter.
Several weeks later, Jesus made his last journey to Jerusalem. He traveled south in the Jordan Rift Valley and came to Jericho, where he healed the blind man Bartimaeus, and then met the tax collector Zacchaeus in municipal Jericho. Then he climbed up the Jericho to Jerusalem road, again to Bethany, where he had a supper in the home of Simon the leper. Later, Jesus rode a donkey from Bethphage over the summit of the Mount of Olives into Jerusalem. From Bethany and Bethphage, we now climb to the summit of the Mount of Olives. It was from Bethphage that Jesus rode on a donkey as the designated king, the son of David, into his city, Jerusalem. At the fork in the modern road, Jesus would have followed the path to the left. The long journey from Jericho is coming to an end. A healthy person could walk the Jericho-Jerusalem road in 8 to 9 hours. At the summit of the Mount of Olives, Jerusalem and the Temple Mount come into view. Finally, the road goes down into and then up out of the Kidron Valley, which separates Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives.
We're just other
Now, I stop it. There we go. There we go. Okay. Sorry for that fuzzy part there. Hope it helps a little bit. That's a great explanation of that satellite. Bible Atlas thing is of that terrain that goes between Jericho and Jerusalem. They did a really good job explaining that up there. And Jesus went up that many times. Many times. The one last time when he goes up to his death. So this lawyer comes to Jesus, and he's clearly says he's there to tempt or to test Jesus. And so he asks him, what did I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus turned around and asked a question back to him. Okay, what does the law say? Well, you're reading the scriptures. What does the book say? And he gave him the statement, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And you should love your neighbor as yourself. So the lawyer, not being content with that, since he had answered that, and Jesus said, okay, that's kind of the end of the conversation as well. No, I'm not going to let it die there. So he asked him again, well, who is my neighbor then? We're all familiar with this story. So Jesus tells the story then that we have of the parable of the Good Samaritan, about the priest, the man that got robbed, stripped of his clothes, left for dead. And the priest walks by and just looks at him. The Levite comes along, just looks at him. Now those think about who he's talking to, the Jewish hierarchy, the Jewish people, and that would be their elite, the priest and the Levi, and they don't do anything to help him. So then the man comes by, the Samaritan, binds up his wounds, spends his own money to get him taken care of, etc., etc. Here he puts him on his donkey and takes him to the inn, gives the man money and says, I need to pay you more when you come back. I'll give it to you. So this is just another shot of the terrain coming up through there. So at the end of it, Jesus asked him, who's the neighbor? How did the man answer it? Why did not say the Samaritan? With a priest, a Levi, and a Samaritan. Why would the man not say who the Samaritan was? It's like, you got to be kidding me, right? A Jew mentioned a Samaritan in any kind of favorable type thing. I mean, what did they call Jesus when they wanted to really put the dirty words on him? They called him a Samaritan, right? So for him to come out and say, oh, the Samaritan will not be the hero of the story, not to the Jews, not there. So he didn't answer him by name, he's Samaritan. He said, the one who showed mercy to him. Jesus had a very simple response then. What's the question? Who's my neighbor, right? You go do likewise. You go do like this lowly Samaritan did. You don't do like your priest and your Levite did. You take an example from the Samaritans you don't like. You can do what he did. That's who the neighbor is. So we got just about time for this one slide, and we'll get Mary and Martha pick up Wednesday night. Who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? How would Jesus answer that question to us if we ask it? Or the man answered, the one who showed him mercy, right? Well, who is it that I can show mercy to? Why should I go out of my way to help somebody else? Are you thinking? Are you thinking, I hope? Why should I go out of my way to help somebody else? Would I go out of my way to help somebody else? I mean, not a total, not a good East Sider. I'm talking about a total stranger that, now, look, I got to understand modern times we live in. It was dangerous today to help things. Was it any less dangerous on this road when you go down from Jerusalem? How dangerous do you think that road was traveling it? How far did I go to help somebody else? Did I spend my own money to help them out? Did I say, here's my credit card, just put the rest of it on my bill? The real question comes in, what do you answer to start with? How do you read the law? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And your neighbor, how? As yourself. So, am I treating my neighbor like I want my neighbor to treat me if I was in trouble? So we'll get Mary and Martha Wednesday night. Okay. Thank you.